Hi, my name is Jim Pikarski, and I give Dharma talks and teach meditation here in Venice, Florida at the Blue Lotus Meditation Center. Today, I would like to talk about no self and awareness. In the Buddhist teachings, the most difficult concept is the concept of selflessness. It's the most difficult to understand, and it probably is the most important to understand. So, if we can truly understand this and realize this, this is the gateway to freedom. The self, the false self, the mistaken self, is the center or hub around which all our suffering revolves around. So, if you look at the deepest parts of your suffering, they're always associated with some mistaken idea you have of yourself or how you feel like you have to protect a self that's not there. Most everyone is lost in thought and identified with these thoughts. This seems to be the human condition. In these thoughts, they have created a self, and they've created the self in thought, and now they believe in it. They really don't realize that there's any other way of looking at life. There's any other way of looking at themselves. Because they can't see this and they don't understand this, there's no option for them to have true happiness, at least any kind of lasting happiness. So negative and distorted views of self are the most fundamental suffering. Here's an example. I believe that I'm bad in some way. Maybe I've gotten in trouble as a kid or got in trouble with the law or was told that by my parents or others, and so I believe I'm bad. Now this creates feelings of being bad too, because feelings are not only a response to reality, feelings are a response to our own thoughts. So when I think I'm bad, I will have feelings of being bad. Now I take those feelings as proof that I'm bad. It's kind of a closed loop. The negative thoughts create the negative feelings, and the negative feelings affect the body. It feels very real, and then we take it to be proof that our negative thinking is true. A closed loop that just is painful and is very difficult to get out of. So all conceptions of self have the potential to create suffering. They have a potential to create suffering because we can get tied to these concepts and we can get identified with these concepts and not understanding that they're just useful tools. They're just descriptions for practical purposes. They're not when we believe in them and we take them to be our actual self. What happens is they create tremendous limitation and difficulty for us. So things for practical purposes are like gender, age, etc. These are not problematic. But when we have ideas of ourselves that are more abstract and more, they can be very painful and negative. So the thing about thought in general is that all thoughts have a tendency to condition us. So if any thought is repeated to you enough times, you will tend to get conditioned by it. To break out of this, the main thing to do is to realize our true nature, to get over this false concept of ourselves and to see who we truly are. There's many approaches to this, and all spirituality aims at this in general. However, there's something called the direct approach. The direct approach, everybody comes to on the spiritual path eventually. They have to if they're ever going to break through. Because what we really need to do is we really need to see that our nature is no different than God or no different than it's spiritual. It's good. And we need to be able to see that. And we not only need to be able to see that, we need to be convinced. So it's not only being able to see it, it's being convinced that this is true. To be convinced that this is true, we need to see this over and over and over again until we can drop all our false concepts and really embrace this Not embrace it because it's another belief system, but because we see it, because we've let go all of the false belief systems and see what is actually true. So the self in the direct approach can be examined in two ways. The first one is the clarification of what we are not. So if we can really see through the false self or ego and seeing that it's just a construction of thought and should not be identified with, then we have an option for freedom. Because the self is made up of thoughts, part of this is just being able to question our own thinking. If you're just identified with your thinking and you believe everything you think, then you're going to suffer a lot. And it's important to be able to question our own thinking. If we can't question our own thinking, then we are prisoner to our own thinking. Another way of clarifying what we are not is just seeing the whole nature of thought, its limitations. So not only can you question specific thoughts, but you can also see the whole limitation of thought in general. By seeing the whole limitation of thought in general, we're more likely to be able to drop our identification with thought. The third way of seeing through the self is the most direct way, and this is seeing how the self is a construction of thought and examining this. So we really see that all these constructions we have of the self, we are not them. We are the one that is observing them. These are just objects in our consciousness and are not us. The second general way of realizing our true nature is having Buddha nature or our true nature or Christ consciousness, whatever you want to call it, pointed out to us. So this means challenging. This is challenging because it is beyond words and symbols. So it's a very difficult thing. A lot of times people have to have some kind of spiritual experience behind them to be able to do this. Like if you're been a meditator, then you may be used to states of consciousness which are non-conceptual. And if you're used to states of consciousness which are non-conceptual, then that will help you recognize that which is non-conceptual, your true nature. So, it's really beyond definition and even beyond being real or unreal. Those are all concepts. So this direct pointing out can be very effective if the person is ready for it. So one way of looking at our true nature is to see that we are awareness. So one way of pointing this out is to take a look at awareness and just notice some of the characteristics of awareness. I'm going to take some of these from a book I was reading called Awareness Games by Brian Tom O'Connor. And I added to them a little bit, but basically a lot of them are his, basically. So first, let's look at what awareness is. Awareness is what's noticing your current experience. So awareness is what's noticing your current experience. Awareness is what everything you can possibly notice appears in. So it is what everything you can possibly notice appears in. Awareness is the noticing of everything that can be noticed, including the noticing itself. Awareness is the noticing of everything that can be noticed, including the noticing itself. Awareness is what doesn't change when everything else in your experience changes. Awareness is what doesn't change when everything else in your experience changes. Awareness is the background of your experience. Awareness is the background of your experience. Awareness is what is looking. Awareness is what is looking. Awareness is what is hearing. Awareness is what is hearing. Awareness is what thought appears in. Awareness is what thoughts appear in. Awareness is what sensations appear in. Awareness is what sensations appear in. Awareness is what emotions appear in. Awareness is what emotions appear in. Awareness is what dreams appear in. Awareness is what dreams appear in. Awareness is what has never changed since you were a little child. It's always there. We have never known a time when awareness was not. Awareness is what has never changed since you were a little child. It's always there. We have never known a time when awareness was not. Awareness is where you go when you ask, "Am I aware?" Awareness is where you go when you ask, "Am I aware?" Awareness is you. Awareness is you. It's interesting. It says, we have never known a time when awareness was not. Well, of course, because we can't know anything except through awareness. So now let's look at what awareness is not. So, we've talked about what awareness is, but let's talk about what it is not. Awareness is not a special state you have to get into. It's already happening whether you notice it or not. Awareness is not a mystical or special experience. It's just garden variety everyday awareness. The simple noticing of experience. Awareness is not a mystical or special experience. It's just your garden variety everyday awareness. The simple noticing of experience. Awareness is not something you have to learn to do. It's already doing itself. You simply notice it. Awareness is not something you have to learn to do. It's already doing itself. You simply notice it. Awareness is not a concept. Awareness is not a concept. Awareness is not another object in awareness. It has no shape, color, or form. Awareness is not another object in awareness. It has no shape, color, or form. Awareness is not relative, where sometimes we are really aware and other times we are hardly aware. That's relative awareness, not absolute awareness, which always is. We are aware whether we're drinking or drunk or whatever. So awareness is not relative, where sometimes we are really aware and other times we're hardly aware. That's relative awareness, not absolute awareness. Absolute awareness always is. Awareness does not come and go. Awareness does not come and go. Coming and going takes place in awareness. Excuse me. So this is one way to be able to notice what awareness is. A lot of times we don't really contemplate what awareness is and understanding exactly what it is and what it is not. It's very difficult to put our finger on awareness because it doesn't have color or form. It's just knowing in general. And one thing is to understand this intellectually, it's another thing to realize it. So let's do a little exercise. Um, so one of the things that happens to us is that we get all kinds of ideas about ourselves, all kinds of things that get attached to us, or that we get attached to, that we think are ourself. It's kind of like throwing a nice clean magnet into a bunch of metal filings. You know, the nice clean magnet turns into this fuzzy monster. And this is similar to our own mind. Our own mind draws to it and gets attached to false concepts about ourselves, false feelings, false everything. So this is called the name game, and it's very specific to you, because what I would like you to do is I would like you to just say your name to yourself. And this is an important exercise for contemplation. It's about your own self-discovery. So you're just discovering what's there. So you say your name to yourself slowly, over and over, and see what images, thoughts, feelings, sensations, moods arise when you say your name to yourself. And be aware that none of these are you. They're just things that come and go, because until you said your name, you weren't even aware of these things. They just came and went. They're also objects in consciousness. They're not. You are the awareness that's perceiving them. So as you say your name to yourself, notice any thoughts. Thoughts are verbal. Notice any images. Images are pictures. Notice any feelings, emotions. I remember when I first started doing this many years ago, the first feeling I noticed was the feeling of heaviness associated with my name. This is a feeling that I had due to past circumstances that got attached to me and had nothing to do with myself. It was interesting when I saw this heaviness, then it disappeared because I realized it was just a false metal filing clinging to my magnet, basically. So notice any sensations that arise too. You may have tensions in your body that you associate with yourself. You may have heaviness in your body. You may have constrictions, pain, all kinds of things. And notice what general moods arise also as you say your name. So as you're doing this, you're aware of all these things, and you're aware that none of these things are you. So hopefully by doing this exercise and by noticing what awareness is, you will be able to get closer to realizing your true nature. I hopefully that everyone can come to this. And I think that if you're watching this video, then maybe you have already an understanding of you need the direct path. You need a direct perception of who you are, your true nature. Thank you.